Hello, UK Crime Book Club. We are live. We are here for publication day. I'm so excited with the absolutely gorgeous Penny Batchelor. Happy publication day.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's yeah, can't believe it's here now. So I've been working on the book for well over a year, and then the days arrived. It's like Christmas Day, really, but with no Santa.
Tell us all. Tell us all a bit about the reunion party.
Well, it's the 5 former university friends get together the first time 25 years later at a digital detox hotel right in the middle of beautiful North Yorkshire, in the middle of nowhere. And they're getting together to remember their friend Tanya. I'm from Yorkshire, so I'd say Tanya, but
I'd say Tanya.
is quite posh. She's from Devon. She's Tanya. Who died tragically 25 years ago. So they're all getting together just to remember her for a reunion. But, sometimes when you were friends with people 25 years ago, it doesn't mean that you've necessarily got that much in common now. And what sort of secrets and lies were people keeping in the past? So it's a bit of a, actually, you've interviewed Trevor Wood before, haven't you? You've had him on
a few times, yeah.
And he gave me a lovely quote, and he said it's like an Agatha Christie type locked room, really cool take on that. And I never thought about that. So that's what it is, really. Who's going to get out of that hotel alive?
I'm saying nothing. We don't want to say anything and give anything away. It's quite a tricky one to discuss because you can kind of talk about people arriving, they've not seen each other for a long time. They arrive at the hotel. Jeannie welcomes them. She's the manager and has invited them to celebrate, to remember their friend 25 years after her death. And they all come in, and it's really interesting to see the chapters from everybody's different points of view. And you know that all of them have got something that they don't all know about each other, at least one thing. So straight away, you that signature intrigue of yours, it's just right there. Straight away, you're thinking, oh, and every time something happens with somebody, thinking, oh, is it? Oh, okay. Is it going to be? Oh, and I didn't guess. But we won't say what I didn't guess.
Good. I think it's the first time I've written from different characters' perspectives. I've usually just had one or maybe two, and it was a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
trying to sort of differentiate the characters, but also write from their perspective, but not give too much away. But give just enough to make you sort of wonder, because people aren't going to reveal all their secrets straight away. And also, I sort of think about what people do in their social lives with former friends. If you meet up with somebody you were at school with or you used to work with, you're going to put your best front on. You're not going to actually tell them all the things that went wrong that day and that you had a row with your partner and all these things. You want to almost like Instagram yourself. You want to be, oh, I'm successful and I'm doing really well and I'm really happy and things are going really well for me. But that isn't always necessarily true, is it? So, there's all these sort of different things I wanted to explore, as well as the idea that these group of 6, they all met when they were at a fictional university just outside Bristol. And so when you think about, people change a lot in 25 years. And university is a time that it's a bit of a melting pot. Everybody's away from home. Well, my characters were. There was nobody who lived with their parents nearby. And you've got people from different class backgrounds, monetary backgrounds, and they all sort of muck in together. But it's when they go into adult life that those differences rear their head again, and you're not all in this little bubble together. Those 3 years have ended, and you are sort of reverting to who you are really, and how well did you really know those people, and who was pretending to be something that they weren't.
And that's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because we do have this kind of the Instagram lifestyle, the Facebook lifestyle. People show the good. A lot of people do show the bad bits as well now. But really, a lot of people will take photographs and just share the good bits, and you don't really get to see what goes on behind the scenes. So reading people's thoughts in this way is fascinating.
I don't with the Instagram stuff. I don't know how to filter a photo, and I sort of airbrush my wrinkles out and things like that. So what you see is what you get with me. But I do have boundaries with what I put on social media, and I'm not gonna. There are some things I might talk about if I think it might help other people, like
Mm.
disability rights and stuff like that. But I'm not going to share everything. I think you're right. It's really good on social media now that more people are trying to be authentic, but they're still curating themselves, aren't they? They're not. They're only sharing what they want to share. It's not total reality. Excuse me, I've got an itchy eye. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Talking about kind of disability awareness and things, you have the Lit Prize that I wanted to ask you about. I was going to leave it for a bit later, but I'll ask you now, seeing as you kind of, we're on the subject. So tell us about that. You co-founded a very, a brilliant project, and with a publisher. So
That's
you tell me, because I'll just say it all wrong.
right. Okay. Well, sort of go back to 2019, and I'd written my first novel, which uh, was My Perfect Sister, and I was doing the rounds like authors do. I didn't have an agent, and therefore I couldn't get it in with the big publishers. So I thought, well, I'll try the smaller indies, and I ended up very fortunately with Red Door Press, and the publisher there, Claire Christian. What she really liked from my blurb, my cover letter, that I was saying that I wanted to write, it's commercial psychological thrillers, but I wanted to make sure that they represented the modern world
Mm.
around us, and that they included disabled and ill characters, and they're not there to be worthy, to sort of make a point, sort of rolled on to say, oh, look, I'm really inclusive, and then roll them off. They're there because we are here in everyday life, and the stories they're not about disability and what it's like to be disabled. They're just showing ordinary people living their
Yeah.
lives as you would do with, women and men, people of different ages, different ethnicities, sexualities, and everything. They all live in the modern melting pool that is 21st century life. And I was saying that don't tend to really get featured very much in novels unless it's about disability. And when it is, it's usually some sort of misery memoir, or um, fighting against the odds to have do some wonderful, amazing thing to prove that disability isn't getting you down or whatever. And I sort of tend to think, I just want to live my life. I don't want to have to prove anything to anybody, because I'm just me. Other people don't have to prove anything. If
Exactly.
your lifelong goal was to climb Everest, great. But don't do it just because you think that you have to, so people will think that you're trying or whatever. And then Claire said to me, how about co-founding a literary prize to try and encourage more people to write books that include one or more disabled characters, and publishers to publish them. I joined the Society of Authors, and they've got a group called the ADCI group, which stands for Authors with Disabilities and Chronic Illnesses. And I heard through people in there that some had actually been told by publishers not to write about a disabled character because it wasn't relatable. And I kind of think, yeah, you can write about serial killers, stuff like this, but no, you can't have somebody who's deaf.
What a bizarre thing to say.
And some people were even scared of actually telling their publishers, their agents, that they had a disability if it was a hidden one that wasn't obvious, just in case they might be sidelined or whatever. So I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. So Claire and I, we went to the Society of Authors and got their help with some funding and organisation to launch the prize. Last week, it was the second winner, and that's Lorraine Brown with, I'm just looking over it there. Yes, it's over in the corner of my room, Mother Sea, and that's a really good. So it's a fascinating novel. It's about a community in tropical crimes. That's a British overseas territory or something like that. So it's controlled by Britain, but it's in the tropics, and it's all about the characters there. Their environment is deteriorating because of global warming, and there's a big tussle between the population of whether they should stick to the old traditional ways or whether they should let scientists and people in and modernize their cultural values, really. So it's more exciting than it actually sounds. But there are a couple of ill characters in there, and it all adds really skillfully to the story about sort of a bit of page turner, because hits that sweet spot between being literary but also having a really good plot, so you want to keep reading. It's not just 5 pages of description of a tree, something like that. It's excellent, so I definitely recommend that. And if anybody's out there who's an author, you don't have to be traditionally published to submit. We'll be opening again in November, I think, for next year's prize. And if you're self-published, you can submit, but the criteria, and do look on the Society of Authors website just to double check the criteria, but the author needs to be disabled or chronically ill themselves, but we're not going to ask you for a doctor's letter or anything. And then the novel will include one or more disabled characters, and it's for adult novels. We would absolutely love to get more funding to introduce a children's category, and then also go to a non-fiction category as well. But I'm telling you, I did not realise before I started working on it how expensive literary prizes are. It's not just the prize money, it's all the admin in the background and the judges and things like that. But it's well worth doing. I'm so glad we did it, and yeah, really pleased. Thanks for asking about it.
Well, while we're on this subject, let's go to the anthologies. So I'll show this one off because I happen to have this one here with me. So this is Unlocked. And do you want to tell us about the D20s and the Trussell Trust?
Yes, of course. Well, I signed my contract in 2019, and the book was supposed to come out May 2020. And of course, we didn't know the pandemic was going to hit and bookshops were going to be shut. And then there was a really lovely lady called Polly who started a Facebook group for authors who were going to be published in 2020. So we could all get to chat and meet each other online, share details about our books and support each other, because we couldn't go and do this in everyday life because we all had to stay indoors. And we became the D20s, and there's quite a core group of us now who still chat regularly and meet up, either online or in person, and just really support each other, cheer each other on, and help out when we're a bit stuck with our writing as well. So ask questions and stuff. And Philippa East, I think it was, came up with the idea of creating a short story anthology that we self-published to raise money for charity. And Unlocked came out a couple of years ago. The idea was unlocked because we all met in lockdown, so that's the pun for the title. And it was the cost of living crisis in 2022, so we decided the money will go to the Trussell Trust, and we've raised quite a few £100s now. And we also did the short story, and mine in there is called The Dilemma. And Sam and I were just having a chat before we went live, and yeah, I think I liked it. Quite a few people close to me didn't, but never mind. You can't please everybody, can you? I would urge you to read it, because I've had a lot of people I don't know saying that they really enjoyed it.
I thought was brilliant. But the thing is, it's about 10 pages. There's not really anything we can say other than we can maybe say, can we say anything about it? It's a really tricky one.
It's set in a car in a traffic jam. There's a husband
And
and
that,
wife.
yeah, and that might be it. I was literally thinking it's a couple in a car. What
Yeah.
else can we say?
I think what I really love about the anthology is that it's all different types of genre. There's in fact Victoria Dowd's got a story in there and she won a prize for it. She wrote it with her daughter and she did really well. But it's not just crime, there's romance and women's fiction and it's great because if you're sort of the sort of person that likes to read before you go to bed, but then you got 10 minutes, you can just read a bit of a story or read a full one and then that's it. It's not like you're trying to read a novel and then you've got to keep going back each night to remember the last few pages that you read the night before when you were dropping off.
That's the thing, and because it's short stories in an anthology, and it's big, but it's not like hardback. If you fall asleep while you're reading, which you won't because they're all gripping, it's not going to hurt your face.
Well, I've got news for you, Sam. Would you like to
Go
hear some
on.
news?
I'd love to hear
Well,
some
come in.
news. Fantastic.
Come in. We don't know yet when. We're working on it at the moment. We've all written our stories and we're currently sharing them between each other to edit them. And I'm going through that prediction process, really. So I don't know when it's going to come out. But I will give you a little spoiler alert. My story, I had so much fun writing it. And I've actually written two with the same characters, but there's only one that's going to be published in the book. It's a sort of tongue-in-cheek Miss Marple style set in the 1950s. And there's a sleuth who's called Eugenia Porter, but she's Jean to her friends. And she has walking difficulties. So she's very much in the sort of middle class kind of town, you know, in the social scene, but she's also a little bit of an outsider. She tends to, you know, be sitting there and people don't know she's there. And so she gets to sit and hear everything that's going on and observe and work everything out. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to people reading that. It's a mystery about Midsummer Night's Dream. There's an amateur production of the Midsummer Night's Dream in his small historic town. But, of course, because it's a crime story, it doesn't all go to plan.
But is this one a little cozier than your usual, by the sounds of it?
Yes, it's. I mean, there still is a death, but yeah, it's not psychological. It's sort of fun, really. If murder can be fun, I don't know, but yeah, it's not. It's not going to make you scared. Do you remember there used to be that telly program Crime Watch, and at the end
Oh
they'd say,
yeah,
"Don't have
don't have
nightmares." It's not
nightmares.
gonna give you nightmares. You're not going to think it's going to happen to you.
So the reunion party is your third psychological thriller, and I believe you're working on your fourth book at the minute.
I am, and
Is that a psych thriller?
it's another psychological thriller. It's just from one person's point of view this time, and it's a little bit of a dual timeline, but I don't want to say any more because I haven't finished it and I don't want to jinx myself. And as you know, that you can hand in a manuscript to your publisher and then your editor might want to change bits and stuff. So I don't want to tell you something that might turn out not to happen in the end. But I mean, I'm enjoying writing that. And I'm also in the research stage of another novel. And this is a bit of a change because I got a grant from Arts Council England to pay for an archive researcher to help me with an idea I've got that's set in Nazi Germany. It's I would call it a literary historical thriller. And because I'm a wheelchair user, it's quite difficult for me to get about. And there's a lot of material in archives that you physically got to go and travel in London to see. So my lovely librarian who's helping me out is has gone and done that for me just to gather the material. So when I start writing, then I will be immersed in the world of 1950s, 1930s Germany. And it, again, I won't tell you too much, but it's about parents trying to keep their daughter safe and out of the nasty murdering hands of the Nazis.
Wow, that's quite a dark topic, obviously.
It's, it
I
is very
knew there
dark.
were. Sorry, go on.
I'm going to make sure there's a lot of light in it as well. Some humour, because you can't just read dark all the time, can you?
Yeah,
You need light and shade, a bit of relief.
definitely. I didn't know. I mean, we know there's all kinds of different experts. You know, we had a panel at Leeds with CSIs and a crime scientist, and Leslie used to be a psychologist, I believe. So we had lots of different things like that, and we have Graham Bartlett, who's the police advisor as well. It never occurred to me that you could hire somebody to, do the research in the archives.
Yeah, I mean, I just knew that I would need it just because of my physical accessibility. And Lauren, who's doing it for me, she's a librarian, a library assistant. She's a, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. I've got a frog in my throat. She's
Should
also
have
an
got
English lit
home with you.
graduate. So she knows. She knows what she's looking for. She's very good at following the brief, and she knows how to navigate archives and how to find what you want when you're faced with all these, huge selection of materials. And that's been brilliant for me. It's been ever so helpful. Really good.
What a great job to just sit amongst all the research and get to go through it. That's an amazing job. So can you tell us how far into book 4 you are? I know you're not going to tell us what it's about, but
I'm about halfway through,
okay.
but I've got it. It's all plotted out. I used to be more of a pantser, so I would sort of know my main characters, and I would know my inciting incident, the thing that happened at the beginning that kicks everything off. But then I'd sort of not quite know where I was going, and that's so hard to write when you do that. So for books 3 and 4, I've known what my ending is going to be. I've written a synopsis, but within that, there's room for change and additions. But I have sort of known how it's going to end, so I'm not sitting there thinking, "How the heck are we gonna finish this one?" And the twists kind of come along as I'm thinking, and then sometimes, occasionally at the end, I'll read it through, read back, and think, "Oh well, what if I just added that bit in there?" And that'll be good.
I do love the twists in your books. When you're writing now with a plot in mind, are things changing as you go along? Have you got like the basic skeleton and then things kind of move a bit and or maybe change as you develop your characters more? Or were you more rigid in knowing your characters before you got writing?
Before I write, I tend to sort of just daydream about the characters. So I might sort of think about, yeah, what sort of clothes would they wear? What would they do with their free time? What was their childhood like? Things like that. But when I'm writing them, when I'm writing the characters and they're interacting, I sort of tend to get to know them a bit better in my head. And I'm not one of those authors that are a bit scary and have a huge spreadsheet and post-it notes and pin boards and know exactly what's going to happen in each chapter. So I'll know the story arc, but as I'm writing, I might, different scenes will come in my head and I'll think, oh no, what we need now is a bit of tension here, or what we need is a bit of deflection, or what have you. That sort of just comes instinctively as I go along. But I say I say instinctively, but sometimes I can be sitting there for days and I haven't got a clue, and then it will just come to me. I'll be writing something, I'll think, no, that's wrong, no, that's not working, no, I finally sort of hit on something that does.
That's really it's quite an interesting thing that you've gone from a full-on plotter. I didn't think you were ever gonna full-on pantser. I didn't think you were ever gonna try fully plotting, and now that's working for you, which just shows that the process does evolve with authors as they go along.
It does. I mean, I think it's just come with experience as well. And also the fact that when I got my book deal for books 3 and 4, I had to give a synopsis. So they wanted to know what they were buying. So that made me think about what the story was. It wasn't just the option to, well, write something and then hand it in. They wanted to be sure it was the sort of story that they wanted to publish and was right for their imprint. So that was really good to make me think it through. I've got my brain doesn't stop, Sam, and I've got so many different ideas for books. They're all there on my computer, and I've got quite a few that I could, if I had time, I could write. But some of them, there's just not enough there, and I can be really excited about the concept, how it's going to start, and who the characters are. But then I just can't think where it's going to go and do something different. Because the more books that you write, the more it's got to be same but different. So you want to have your sort of trademark, your style, but you can't use the same. I was going to say tricks, but they're not tricks, but situations every time.
Yeah.
That's be really boring for the reader. It's like I have to keep thinking up more names, because you can't use the same names. Or it'd be really confusing if the heroine was called Sam in one book, and then in the next book the heroine was Sam as well. So you've got to keep thinking of different names.
It's tricky, isn't it, the name thing? Because it's something I end up talking a lot about with authors, when generally not as much online, but if we're sat chatting, and they say how difficult it is. Do you end up coming up with a lot of names that begin with P initially, and then you have to get rid of those and pick something that doesn't start, that you've not got a pen or a penny or a Penelope, and you've not got Peter, Paul, and
name in the book. No, that would be a bit weird. Sometimes the name just comes to me, because I think a name really suits a certain character, because of names can be particular to a certain time of popularity. So that perhaps somebody called Margaret's going to be about 60 or 70. Somebody called Kylie is going to be 20 or whatever, and they can also show social background, but not all the time. What I tend to do is think, okay, right, when were they born? And then I'll just Google popular names of 1982 or something like that, and go through and have a scroll down and see which ones I think suit that character, fit really, and on a practical level, which ones I haven't used before, or I've only used for a really minor character.
Thing is, the names in this one all really stand out. So you've got Jeannie, who's invited everyone to the hotel. Right, how are you saying Tanya?
Tanya.
Tanya.
Almost like it was written Tarnia. So for Southerners, it will be really easy for you to say it, but for us Northerners, we just want to say Tanya.
And there is an explanation in the book. It's not an explanation. There's kind of a comment on how she would say to people, this is how you pronounce it. And even with that, my memory is dreadful. So I wanted to hear you say it so I get it right.
She's one of these people who think, because in my imagination, she's real, and she sort of gets annoyed when people don't say a name properly. So my birth name is Penelope. That's on my birth certificate, and if I get called to a doctor's surgery, it's Penelope. And sometimes people say Penelope or Penelope. I just think, can you not say it? So I correct them and say, actually, no, it's Penelope. So I got Tanya doing that. No, she doesn't want me to say Tanya. No, it's Tanya. No, that's my name properly.
I can understand Tanya having to explain how her name sounds, because it's a bit different than the traditional pronunciation. But Penelope, that's quite that surprises me.
I even had Penelope once, which
I don't even know.
I'll probably start calling me that now.
I don't even know where to begin with that. It's quite a popular name, isn't it? So you think people would know how to pronounce it?
It wasn't when I was born. It was very old-fashioned, actually. in I'm not going to give away my age, say when I was born, but it's only in the last sort of 10 years or so that it's become more popular, because there was the actress Penelope Cruz, and I think one of the Kardashians called their daughter Penelope, and so
Oh, right, okay.
it's sort of come back round again. Really, I like it. I like the name, but not
I
when
like
it's
the name.
plot. So yeah, the names are interesting. So I'm trying to remember how I came up with them. Just trying to think of different names. There's
So we've
Adam.
got Karen, Adam, Gina, Tanya. We've got, I have got them written down, Johnny and who have I forgotten? Syra.
Syra, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
So they're all very different names, which does, it always helps. But each chapter is from our point of view anyway. So that makes it easier with so many people. For the reader, I know you said for you it was quite tricky to keep up with that. You made it look, it's very smooth. You made it look easy, but I can imagine you tearing your hair out trying to
Yes,
kind
it
of figure
wasn't.
out what is for who.
Yeah, and it's not just the plot, it's their voice, the way they see the world and the way they say things, because they can't all be the same. So Johnny, for example, he's from quite a privileged London background, so he uses different language to Adam, who's from a working class background, but he's sort of working class who's done well for himself.
Mm.
Um, and then Karen is sort of a bit more mouthy, more outspoken, not afraid to sort of say what she thinks. Whereas Jeannie is very reserved,
Mm.
a bit more well spoken and cautious in what she says. I like Jeannie. Yeah,
I like Gina.
she's a good one.
Mm.
Or
I
is
think
she? Maybe I'm throwing you off.
maybe we're double bluffing.
Yeah.
I like the idea that you've taken kind of a twist on kind of a country house sort of thing. Or I really like guest houses, out in the country, that kind of thing, where you know all the lights go off and. But with this one, you have them hand the mobile phones in because it's a detox place. We're not having TVs, we're not having mobile phones and all these distractions. You're going to come here, you're going to unwind, and everything's going to be grand.
I read about one of those places a few years ago, and I thought, what, people are paying loads of money not to have their phone? Wow. But it's the thing, people want
Mm.
to have that distraction and experience life without their devices. So it sort of shows that Jeannie, who's the manager, she's doing quite well for herself because it's quite a cool boutique hotel. But also for me, for the writer, it means that they can't just look on their phone and call the police or something. It removes that. I mean, it's sort of hard when you're writing in the 21st century because there are so many things that can't happen because people would just phone or internet or something like that.
Yeah, it does. It puts kind of a lot of challenges in front of all of you authors because you have to come up with something different and some believable way of removing the technology that you don't want because it's so pesky. It's not like you can, I don't know, I mean, out in the middle of nowhere, there's no signal, quite a nice, easy and believable thing to do. People having the phones taken off them, that adds an extra element because people are twitcher. We're all so used to being on our phones.
Yeah.
I do put mine down now quite a lot.
I think
Um,
back to when I was a child and mobile phones were just something you saw on the telly with rich London businessmen and they were massive bricks. I mean, thinking, why on earth would you want to have one of those? But they're just so part of everyday life. And if you haven't,
mm,
I get stressed if I can't find mine. You think, what if something goes wrong and I can't contact somebody? Or what if somebody tries to contact me and I'm not there? So there is that stress of not being with your phone. And I think that heightens the tension in the book because you sort of, they're there sort of thinking, oh, everything's going to be fine. I've not got my phone. I've not got social media. I can actually talk to people and relax. But can
It's
you?
not that simple, is it? And I like the little touch when they walk in, and this is not a spoiler, everyone. It's right at the beginning, as they're handing the phones in, and you see in the phones, and one of them's got the name sellotaped to the back because they've got the same phone as the kid, and one's got the it's the child's old phone, so they've got the phone case. It just really made me laugh because you just expect everyone to be chucking in an iPhone or something, and my phone is not that fancy. It's good enough for what I need, but yeah, it's not a fancy phone. Wouldn't be the end of the world if I dropped it in a puddle. Not an expensive one. It was nice to see some realism with the phones that were put
Well, I
in the
remember
box.
my sister-in-law having my nephew's old phone when he upgraded because she doesn't care what that it's the latest iPhone or whatever. She just wants something that does what she needs it to do.
Yeah.
Uh, but then, of course, the businessman has the posh new latest company iPhone sort of thing, and and I've got mine's got my own case that's quite personalised to me that a man probably wouldn't want to be seen dead with. So yeah, it all just shows the different elements of people's personalities, I think.
What made you start off? Sorry, I just bit my tongue. What made you start with the idea of friends from uni rather than kind of high school friends or work friends? Why was that a particular?
Because I wanted to explore the idea that I was mentioning earlier that university is like a bubble. It's about the only time in your life where you might meet people from all different backgrounds, all different places in the country or maybe the world, and
Mm,
you're all sort of shoved together and you have to sort of get along with it because you all don't know anybody there, so you pal up. But there might not be people that you would be friends with, sort of if you were at school or uh, if you worked with them, that sort of thing. It's a sort of bit of a pressure cooker, really. So
mm,
they've got that 3 years of that bubble, and then I thought that was quite a realistic way for people to meet, and then show 25 years later when they've all gone their own separate ways, how much they have changed and how they all remember their time at university differently because they're looking at it through the lens of history and from being a different person then. Because it's not a spoiler, but Tanya was the leader of the gang. She was the one that brought everybody together and
mm.
they all admired and wanted to be sort of thing. Um, but of course, when people have grown up and they've got more self confidence and life experience, they might think, oh, well, yeah, why did I think she was so brilliant? Kind of thing. Was she really? Or
It's
what?
interesting as they're all kind of sharing their memories of Tanya. The kind of little things that come up that people thought that she'd been she'd organised something nice for them, and then found out actually, oh no, that was my idea. As they're all sitting around the dining table, this lovely meal's been served, the wine's loosening the lips, and they're all kind of chatting away, and all realising that actually, just exactly what you were saying, that it, things weren't as they all remembered, and as they start to put their stories together, a different kind of version of their lives comes up almost, this completely different thing than how they remembered it,
I
which
think
is
memory is a
really
really
interesting.
interesting thing because you'll get 6 people, 5 or 6 people in a room who were there at the same time years ago, and everybody will remember different things.
Mm,
Just, just as an aside, I went to see Abba Voyage last Saturday. It's really brilliant. And I texted a friend of mine from university, who I've not seen for a few years, but we still keep in touch. And I went
mm.
there, it was brilliant. And he said, well, you said to me at university that you would never go to see them if they all couldn't be bothered to get together. What a waste of money. And did I? You know, all these weird things that people remember. And another thing I just wanted to say is I'm quite fond of Tanya. and I'm quite forgiving of her as well. And I think the reader, when you read it, you can make up your mind of whether she was just growing up and just being a teenager come young adult, or whether she was deliberately being a bit rude.
I feel like she was handling each situation that was presented to her as she saw fit at the time, without really taking into account, you kind of, when you're young, you don't necessarily think about the big picture and how doing this thing would affect this person. And I think, so yeah, youth, inexperience, that was definitely the thing that I got, but I didn't get kind of a bad person vibe. Some errors of judgment, but who can say that they haven't had those? So, yeah, I think that was a pretty accurate thing of how I felt about her.
Good, yeah. That's good to hear.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about was the Women's Prize, because I want to ask you about different events that you've been to and things that you've got coming up. But I'm going to start there.
It was so exciting. I'm a little bit of a hustler. I sort of think aim high, be polite, people can say no. And if you don't aim high, you're never going to get anywhere. And you might not get to where you want to be, but at least you get higher than if you hadn't aimed at all.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with the Women's Prize director a year or so ago just to tell her about the ADCI Literary Prize, because Women's Prize is quite hot on representation of women, and I just wanted to point out this prize. And then they asked me to write a blog piece for them for their website, and then they invited me to come and talk on their Thrilling Women panel a couple of weeks ago. Val McDermid was supposed to be on it, but sadly she couldn't make it.
Oh no.
Because I really wanted to meet her. Basically, I was just fangirling Sam because there was Louise Doughty and Dorothy Coomson as well, and then little old me. So then they're these sort of amazing women that I really admire, sort of who had a long career, and then me who's sort of starting out. Really, they were lovely. They were so nice.
Were you cool, calm, and collected?
Sorry?
Were you cool, calm, and collected?
Outside, I think I was, but I wasn't inside. I was just sort of putting on that persona. Yes, of course I deserve to be here. And but it was brilliant because they got a ramp up to the stage, and that was the first time that I've ever seen that. Because normally I go to literary festivals and they've just got steps up, and occasionally you see somebody who's a bit wobbly on their feet going up. I'm thinking, oh, don't fall. But it was brilliant. It was really inclusive. It was great to get up there, and we had a brilliant chat. It was an hour panel, and I think we all could have chatted for a lot longer. It was really good to see their opinions on different types of things, such as the way sometimes women writing crime aren't seen as serious as men writing crime. That women's perspective, a bit, oh, that's just girly, it's fluffy, it's light, it's not serious crime, which isn't true.
The people saying that read any of this crime. It's not fluffy.
Exactly. And also them sort of saying that sorry, I was just trying to formulate it in my mind. Dorothy was pointing out that the majority of people who read crime are women and buy crime. So we should have stories that may be more female orientated, but that doesn't mean men can't read them. We all can read anything that we want, and it doesn't mean that a male crime writer, that Lee Child, is any better than Val McDermid. We're all in it together, should be supporting each other, really.
Absolutely, and I do think overall the crime community is one that crime community, making us all sound like criminals.
Yeah, robbers.
But it is one that there is a lot of support, and debut authors can get a lot of support. And when you've had a few books and you a little bit nervous about the next one, the support for you. If you are, a big hitter and feeling a bit of imposter syndrome and still thinking, I've written 20 books, why is 21 as hard as number one was? There's support for that. There's readers who will recommend, you tell a reader, whose books you've enjoyed, right, well, you'll enjoy this, this, and this then. There's so much to offer in our lovely community.
It's a lovely community. I've heard stories about other genres, sometimes maybe authors not being quite as supportive as I would hope they would be. But I've never come across anybody in the crime and thriller community who was just out for themselves and trying to get one up somebody else or publicly criticising somebody. Not at all, because we all know what it's like. And we're so supportive. It's funny because we write about murder and stuff like that, but we're all just little sweethearts, really. Soft.
You get it all out on the page. That's the thing, when you write it all down, maybe that's, if you're looking at your garden thinking, put a body under those roses, then it's going to go in your story. You're not really going to go and do it. So,
we write about things, we never dream of doing. But it's quite
fun to think about.
It's fun to think about, yeah. I mean, about a year or so ago, somebody put on Twitter, or X now, that they'd found in a charity shop or antique shop some stool, and it had a hidden compartment under the seat. And my first thought was, is there a knife in there? Something like that.
I went with gun.
Gun. Whereas, and this person said her first thought was romantic letters, because she's a romance author. So it just goes to show how your mind works, and that starting point for a story can go so many different ways. I suppose if you're a sci-fi author, you might think you sit on the chair and, you're transported to Mars, a bit like that.
I suppose that's the thing, because people use like an idea generator, or there'll be some sort of prompt, and you'll get, there was an anthology, sadly Red Dog Press aren't a publisher anymore, but the Gone anthology, I think there's about 30 stories in there, and literally all they had to go on was the word gone. And all of the stories are so varied, because one idea to one person is something completely different to somebody else.
I think
so it's really interesting.
I didn't know Red Dog had gone.
Yeah, sadly.
I think it'd be really interesting to have the same, perhaps 2 or 3 sentences pitch, and then to have different authors write a story containing that. It's different from when somebody writes a paragraph and then you continue the story. But if you just, you had the very mini synopsis, and then people just played with that as they wanted to do. Because that's what writing is. It's playing with words. It's having a laugh. It's putting them in a different order and seeing what you get.
I feel like we should mention your previous books as well. I can actually see them behind you. So do you want to give those a little shout while we're here?
I will do. I put those behind me because I haven't actually seen a copy of the reunion party yet. Because unfortunately there was some sort of mix-up in the warehouse that's sending out my other copies, so I haven't seen it yet. My first book was My Perfect Sister. This was the story of Annie. When Annie was 5 years old, her older sister Gemma, who was 16, went missing. She went to school, never came home. And this sort of shrouded Annie's childhood, because she felt that she could never be as good as her sister, because her sister wasn't there to make any mistakes. And the household, it was very sort of sad and grieving. And then Annie goes away at 16, lives her own life. But then when she's 30, she ends up going back to live with her mum, because her mum's got cancer, and she has to confront the past. And when she does, she thinks, I want to find out what happened to Gemma. And that's her story, really, trying to find that out. And is it safe for her to do so? So I've got a soft spot for that book, because it was my first. And Annie I like writing female characters that don't really follow the rules. They're not these sort of girly, feminine, sexy, type. They sort of challenge things in different ways. They might be quiet and thoughtful. They might be loud and outgoing, but they don't really just follow the rules. And then my second book is Her New Best Friend, and that's written from two different viewpoints. Now I've got to try and remember the characters' names now. Do you know, I can't remember the woman's name.
And I absolutely love both of these books, and you'd think I'd have been smart enough to think about this beforehand.
There's a woman, and it's not Agatha, but I remember it's quite a posh name, and she's a young mum. She's in a park. She's got a baby there.
Audrey and Claire.
Audrey, that's it. Kept wanting to say Agatha, begins with an A. And when she's in the park, her daughter runs away. So she goes off to try and find her, looks round, and oh no, the pram with the baby in had rolled down the little hill in the park into the pond. But there's a woman that goes there to go and save him, and that's Claire. And the two become best friends very quickly. But it comes down to this. I love playing with these concepts. How well do you actually know somebody else, and can you trust them? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. So there's a lot of background to how these women's lives end up being intertwined.
I've not asked this for a while, but I don't know if this is going to be a tricky one for you or not. Memorable moment for you as an author. What is your is there one standout moment so far, or are there just lots of them? You sound like you are living the life, Penny.
There's lots of highs and lows, to be honest. So today I just kept refreshing the Amazon page to see how my book was doing, and I think authors we're quite quiet, and we perfectionists, we can really be hard on ourselves. We're thinking, oh no, it's not going to do very well, and then just thinking, don't be silly, it's the first day it's out. But yeah, I've got lots of highs, I guess. I mean, getting the book contract to start off with, amazing. Yeah, I'll never forget that. And my first book coming out. I mean, speaking at the Women's Prize was amazing. And then I'm going to Harrogate Crime. So I'm in festival in July next month. I'm on a panel there, and I'm also a table host at the author dinner, which is going to be brilliant, but it's also a little bit scary. So I've got to sort of...
You'll be in good hands with those readers.
I'll get to meet loads of crime readers there. So I'm hoping there'll be lots more brilliant things to come. I just want to keep writing, keep building my career, and earn enough to keep going, really. And that's what every author wants, really. Of course, it would be wonderful to be a Sunday Times bestseller and get £1 million advance, and have my books turned into films on Netflix, and be a Richard and Judy pick, and all these sort of measures of success. But for me, the main thing is that people like reading my books, because I think it's a real privilege that somebody's paid the money and is using their precious spare time to be entertained by me. So if they say they like it, then that's great. And then also, yeah, earn enough to keep going and have the respect of my peers, because nobody wants other people to say, oh, that's a load of rubbish.
And nobody is going to pick up any of your books and say that.
Good.
You know, I am a huge fan of your writing, so I was thrilled to bits when you got your new book deal. So it was really lovely to have you here for publication day. I'm absolutely thrilled that you chose to come to us.
I couldn't wish for apart from having a star-studded party in LA or something, I could not wish for a better thing to do on my publication day than talk to you. And all the readers, of course.
Of course.
All the viewers.
Sorry, go on.
All the viewers.
And the viewers, sorry. Give us a final quick recap of what everybody's going to go and buy if they haven't already, which is The Reunion Party. Absolutely bloody brilliant book.
Thank you. What do you mean, where they can buy it, or the story?
Bit of both.
Right, well, if you go to my website, pennybatchelor.co.uk, There's links there. It's in an audiobook, ebook, paperback. Anybody who's in Warwickshire, I'm this Saturday doing signing at Kenilworth Books. So you come along, say hello. I'll sign your copy for you, dedicate it for you. It's also some signed copies available. I think it's Fox Lane Books as well. And I think the Crime Bookshop in York, I think they've got some too. But it's available at all good bookshops. I love it when you support indie bookshops because they've always supported me. And also, I would say, please do, when you're at my website, sign up for my author mailing list. You get a free short story when you do, which I had a ball writing. Let me try and remember what it's called. Death of a Publisher. It's a little murder mystery. So as a little bribe to get people to sign up, you get that free, and you'll get to find out what I'm doing. And every now and again, I do little competitions and giveaways and things for my little gang of author newsletter friends.
Thank you so much, Penny. I'm so thrilled that you've come to celebrate with us today, and best of luck with this brilliant book.
Can I just say as well, there's so much I could say if you'd have read the book. So if you're in a book group and you've all read it and you'd like me to have a Zoom meeting with you so you can all chat about it, get in touch with me via my website, and then we can talk about all the things that we couldn't talk about tonight.
It is a tricky one, isn't it? Because there's so much that you can't talk about because it would give things away. And, I'm not a fan of spoilers. It drives me insane. I think the first 3 to 5 chapters, depending on length, is fairly fair game as you ease into it. And then after that, it's very dependent on what happens as to how much you can say. It's very tricky.
Twists quite early on, isn't there? That's you can't tell people about.
So you have to pick and choose your bits carefully. Thank you so much. I hope you'll come back for book 4.
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody for watching. And I hope that you'll enjoy joining Johnny, Adam, Karen, Syra, Jeannie in that digital detox hotel in Yorkshire and finding out what they get up to.
Thank you, Kenny.